The rain on Virex 9 was not water. It was black dust mixed with oil, falling from the sky like slow tears. The metal streets shone under the neon lights as crowds of aliens hurried home, covering their faces from the toxic drizzle. Among them walked a thin woman named Lyra. Her old coat was too big for her, and she held a small child's hand tightly. The girl, Mira, was no more than 6, her big brown eyes watching everything with quiet wonder. They had been walking since sunrise, searching for work. But everywhere Lyra went, doors closed the moment someone saw her face. Human. That word alone was enough to make aliens whisper or spit. The war between humans and the Galactic Union had ended years ago, but hatred lived longer than peace. Now, only a few humans still lived across alien worlds. Poor, desperate, forgotten. Lyra was one of them. She stopped in front of a glowing sign that read Virax Engine Repair. The smell of burnt metal filled the air. Inside, large alien mechanics were shouting and laughing while working on broken ships. Lyra took a deep breath and entered. "Excuse me," she said softly. "I saw your job post. You need workers?" A tall insect-like alien turned. His many eyes blinked in confusion before narrowing. "We do, but not for humans. I can fix things," she said quickly. "I worked in the mines on Orin 3. I can clean, carry, or help with engines." "I just need..." "Enough," the alien hissed. "We don't trust your kind. You humans lie. You break things." Lyra's lips trembled, but she did not beg. She only nodded, took Mira's hand, and walked out into the dirty rain again. Outside, Mira whispered, "Mom, are we bad people?" Lyra knelt down, her knees hitting the wet ground. She brushed the child's cheek gently. "No, baby. We're just people no one understands yet." She smiled, but her eyes were full of pain. They walked on. Her last credits were gone. The city's tall towers looked like cold knives stabbing the gray sky. Every step echoed loneliness. Night was falling when she reached the docks. The air smelled of rust and fuel. In the distance, workers were unloading a small ship, a human-made ship, old but strong. Lyra stopped to watch. The captain was a tall man in a dark coat, his face hard, his eyes tired. "A human? Who's that?" Mira asked. "I don't know," Lyra whispered. The man shouted orders to a few alien workers who didn't seem happy to follow them. When he turned, he noticed Lyra and her child standing near the gate. She tried to move away, embarrassed, but one of the alien workers laughed loudly and said, "Hey, Captain Reynolds. The human woman wants a job. Maybe she can clean your boots." The others laughed. Lyra froze. Mira hid behind her leg, but then the laughter stopped. The captain walked over slowly, his boots heavy on the metal floor. Everyone went silent. He looked at Lyra, then at the child. "You're looking for work?" he asked. Lyra nodded. "Yes, sir." "I can do anything, please," the alien started whispering. "Don't do it, Captain. She'll bring trouble. You know how they are." The captain looked around at them, his expression cold. "I don't care what she is," he said finally. "If she can work, she's hired." The alien stared at him in shock. Lyra couldn't believe it either. She blinked, unsure if she'd heard right. You mean it?" Reynolds nodded once. "Report tomorrow at dawn. And bring your kid. No one stays hungry on my ship." He turned and walked away without another word. Lyra stood there in the rain, her heart pounding. Mira smiled for the first time in days. "Mom, he's nice." Lyra didn't answer. She just looked at the captain's ship glowing in the distance, the only light in a world that had given her nothing. And for the first time in years, she dared to hope. But she didn't know that this small act of kindness, this one job offer, would change the fate of 2 entire worlds. Morning came with a red sky. The sun on Virex 9 didn't rise. It burned through the clouds like a wound that never healed. Lyra and her daughter Mira stood outside the small dockyard waiting. Lyra's hands were shaking, not from the cold but from fear. She had worked for aliens before, but never for a human man, not one like Captain Reynolds. The dock gates opened with a loud hiss, and the captain's ship came into view, the Iron Dove. A small freighter, old and full of scars, but it still stood strong, just like its owner. "Let's go, sweetheart," Lyra whispered. Mira clung to her hand, smiling shyly. Inside the hangar, Reynolds was already working. Sparks flew from a broken engine as he welded a metal plate back into place. When he noticed Lyra, he nodded. "You're early," he said. I didn't want to be late. He smirked faintly. Good. People who show up on time survive longer. It wasn't much of a welcome, but it was more respect than she'd received in years. Reynolds tossed her a pair of gloves. You ever fix a hyperdrive coupler? Lyra blinked. No, sir. But I can learn. Then start learning. For hours she worked, tightening bolts, carrying tools, cleaning parts, and trying to keep up with his fast instructions. Her hands bled, her clothes got dirty, but she didn't stop. Every mistake she made, Reynolds corrected without shouting. He watched her carefully. Not as a soldier watches a recruit, but as a man trying to understand something strange. The aliens nearby whispered among themselves. Why is he keeping her here? Humans bring bad luck. He'll regret this, but Reynolds didn't listen. He'd seen worse luck in war, and somehow, this woman didn't feel like bad luck at all. When Lyra lifted a heavy engine part that even two aliens struggled with, he frowned. You've got strength for someone half-starved, he muttered. Lyra froze. I used to work in mining colonies. You get strong or you die. There was a pause, a long silence that said more than words could. Reynolds simply nodded. Fair enough. By evening, the ship's engine hummed like new. You did good, he said. Lyra smiled, the kind of smile that had almost forgotten how to exist. Thank you, Captain. Before she could say more, a sharp metallic beep echoed through the hangar. A small drone hovered down from the ceiling, its red eye flashing. It scanned Lyra, then let out a piercing alarm. Unauthorized human detected. Alert Federation security. The aliens backed away instantly. See, we told you. She's dangerous. Lyra's heart pounded. No. Please, it's a mistake. I swear. But Reynolds didn't move. His eyes narrowed, calm and cold. He stepped between the drone and Lyra. Cancel that alert, he said firmly. The drone buzzed, confused. Authority level insufficient. Without hesitation, Reynolds raised his plasma pistol and shot it. The drone fell smoking to the floor. The aliens gasped. You just attacked a Federation unit. One of them shouted. Reynolds looked at Lyra. Pack your things. You're not safe here anymore. Lyra stared, frozen. Why did you do that? You could have turned me in. He holstered his gun. Because I don't hand people over to machines. You work for me now. That means I protect you. She didn't know what to say. No one had ever said those words to her before. Mira ran up and hugged Reynolds' leg with a small smile. Thank you, mister. For a moment, even the hardened captain couldn't hide the flicker of warmth in his eyes. He looked down at the child and said softly, Don't thank me yet, kid. The whole city's gonna be looking for you too soon. Outside, sirens began to wail. Red lights glowed across the dock, and that's when Lyra realized this job wasn't a chance. It was the beginning of something far bigger and far more dangerous. Night fell over Virex 9, a city of endless noise and glowing towers. But inside the old ship Iron Dove, it was quiet. Too quiet. Lyra sat in the small workshop, her hands trembling as she tried to clean the dust off her gloves. The drone attack had shaken her badly. Mira was asleep in the corner, wrapped in a thin blanket. Captain Reynolds stood by the door, arms crossed, watching her. He'd seen soldiers break before, strong men who'd lost everything. But there was something different about this woman. She wasn't weak. She was scared, yet unbroken. Tell me, he said finally, his voice low. Why did that drone flag you? What aren't you telling me? Lyra froze. The rag slipped from her hand. I don't know, she whispered. I swear I don't. Reynolds took a step closer, his eyes cold but curious. It called you unauthorized. That's not random. You've got a file somewhere in the system. I told you, I'm nobody. He sighed. Nobody doesn't get hunted by the Federation. Lyra stood up suddenly. You don't understand. They did something to me. Reynolds frowned. Who? The scientists. Back on the human colonies and before the war ended. They said it was for peace. To help us survive on alien worlds. But it wasn't. She slowly pulled up her sleeve. A faint, glowing pattern shimmered on her arm. Not a tattoo, not a scar. A mark, pulsing softly like liquid light beneath her skin. Reynolds stepped back. What the hell is that? Her voice cracked. They called it Project Helion. I didn't ask for it. They tested things on us, nanites, gene mods, strange tech. They said we'd be the future of humanity. She looked down at her arm, eyes full of shame. But when the war turned bad, they left us. Said we were failures. Reynolds stared at her arm again, memories flashing in his mind. He'd heard that name, Project Helion, whispered during the war. It was supposed to be a myth, a secret attempt to make humans stronger than any alien soldier. "You're telling me you were one of them?" he asked quietly. "I didn't want to be," Lyra said. "But I survived when everyone else died. I don't even know why." The silence grew heavy. Outside, thunder rolled like slow drums across the city. Reynolds turned away, thinking hard. He had fought aliens, smugglers, even other humans, but this was different. This woman was walking proof that the Federation had been hiding something for years. Finally, he said, "If they find out you're alive, they won't just come for you. They'll come for anyone near you, including me." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "Then I'll go. You don't have to." Reynolds cut her off. "I didn't say I was letting you go." She looked up in surprise. "I've seen what the Federation does to people it fears," he continued. "If you survived their project, you're more than some failed experiment. And maybe you're exactly what humanity needs again." Lyra didn't know how to respond. For years, everyone had called her a mistake, a human unfit for work, for life, for anything. But now this cold, silent man was looking at her like she mattered. Suddenly, a loud knock echoed from the outer hatch. Reynolds grabbed his blaster instantly. "Stay here," he ordered. He opened the door slightly and saw 2 alien officers standing outside, their armor glowing blue. "Captain Reynolds," one said, "we're looking for a fugitive human female." She was seen entering this dockyard. Reynolds kept his face calm. "Haven't seen anyone. Just me and my ship." The officer's eyes narrowed. "You know the penalty for hiding humans?" Reynolds smiled faintly. "Yeah, it used to be the same for shooting aliens." Before they could respond, he slammed the door shut and locked it. He turned to Lyra. "Pack your things. We're leaving." "Leaving? But where?" "Anywhere but here." He looked at her arm one last time, the glowing mark that pulsed like a heartbeat. He didn't know what she truly was. But something deep inside him whispered. She wasn't a curse. She was a warning. The alarms began as a low hum, then turned into a scream. Red lights flashed across the hangar as the city's patrol drones swept through the misty night sky of Virex 9. Inside the Iron Dove, Captain Reynolds moved fast. He grabbed a pack, loaded ammo, and powered up the ship's control systems. Lyra held Mira close, her hands shaking. "Captain," she whispered. "If we run now, they'll chase us forever." Reynolds didn't look at her. "If we stay, you'll be dead in 10 minutes. Choose your battle." He slammed the cockpit switch. The ship's engine roared to life, a deep growl that echoed through the metallic hangar. From the shadows outside, alien soldiers appeared, their armor glowing blue. They raised their weapons. "Captain Reynolds, step out of the ship. You are harboring a human fugitive." Reynolds grinned coldly. "Guess I'm guilty then." Lyra's heart raced. She could see the fear in Mira's wide eyes. "Hold her tight," Reynolds said. "When I say now, you close your eyes and don't open them till I say." He hit a button on the console. The ship's engine screamed and the air filled with heat. The aliens opened fire. Blue plasma bolts slammed against the hull. Sparks flew everywhere. "Captain, we're hit!" Lyra shouted. Reynolds pulled a lever. Not enough to stop us. The ship lifted off the ground, shaking violently. One of the hangar walls exploded as the Iron Dove blasted through it, leaving a trail of fire behind. The sudden light blinded the soldiers as the freighter shot up into the polluted sky. In the cockpit, the ship rattled like it would break apart. "Hold on!" Reynolds yelled. Mira cried, covering her ears. Lyra wrapped her arms around her, whispering, "It's okay, baby. It's okay." Even though her own voice was trembling, outside a squadron of drones locked onto them. The radar flashed red, the incoming targets. Reynolds cursed. "They're not giving up." He pulled a switch on the dashboard, activating a decoy beacon. The ship split into 3 holographic images on the enemy scanners. The drones fired, hitting only shadows. Reynolds smirked. "Old trick, still works." Lyra looked at him with disbelief. "You've done this before." He nodded slightly. "Too many times. Usually alone." The chase continued above the glowing city. Towers passed beneath them like sharp teeth. The smog shimmered with laser fire. Finally, Reynolds turned the ship toward the planet's outer ring, the industrial zone known as the Grave Belt. It was filled with broken ships, debris and old wrecks, the perfect place to hide. As the Iron Dove entered the debris field, Reynolds cut the engines. The ship drifted silently among the ruins. For a few moments there was only the sound of heavy breathing. Mira peeked out the window. "Mom, are we safe?" Lyra didn't answer. She looked at Reynolds, who was staring at the radar screen. The red dots of the drones began to fade one by one. "They've lost us," he said finally. Lyra exhaled, her whole body relaxing for the first time in hours. Reynolds stood, pacing slowly. "You said Project Helion was a failure. If that's true, why is the Federation still hunting you?" Lyra shook her head. "I don't know. Maybe they think I know something. Maybe they're afraid of what I am." He looked at her, eyes narrowing. "They should be," she frowned. "What do you mean?" "You don't realize it yet," Reynolds said quietly. "When that drone scanned you, the mark on your arm started glowing brighter. I saw it. Whatever they did to you, it's waking up." Lyra's breath caught. "Waking up?" Before he could answer, the ship's lights flickered, and the engines came alive on their own. A faint hum vibrated through the floor. Lyra touched the wall, and the metal responded, glowing softly under her palm. Mira gasped. "Mom, the ship likes you." Reynolds stared, speechless. That's not possible, but deep inside, he knew nothing about this woman had been possible since the day he met her. Outside, lightning flashed across the dark sky of Virex 9. Inside the ship, something far more powerful had just awakened. The Iron Dove floated quietly through the endless night of space. Broken moons shimmered in the distance, and the wreckage of dead ships drifted silently around them like ghosts. Captain Reynolds sat in the cockpit, eyes fixed on the stars ahead. His mind raced. The Federation would not stop hunting them now. He turned slightly, watching Lyra through the reflection on the glass. She was standing by the ship's power core, her hand pressed against the metal wall. Every time she touched the ship, it reacted. Lights flickered, systems hummed, and energy rippled through the cables like a heartbeat. He didn't understand it. But he knew one thing, and she was no ordinary human. "Captain," Lyra said softly, "I didn't mean for this to happen." Her voice was filled with guilt, but also fear of herself. Reynolds leaned back in his seat. "Yeah, I figured that much." He turned toward her. "When you touched the ship, the engines restarted. That wasn't luck." "What did they do to you, Lyra?" She looked down at her hands. "They said I was part of Project Helion. They injected us with nanotech, fused it with our DNA. We were supposed to become stronger, faster." "Supposed to?" She nodded. "Most of us died. The ones who lived, we changed in ways they didn't expect. Sometimes the power comes when I'm scared, sometimes when I'm angry. I can't control it." Reynolds studied her. He had fought alongside many soldiers but never seen fear like hers, not of death but of herself. Suddenly a sharp beeping broke the silence. "Movement," Reynolds said, checking the radar. 2 ships closing in fast. Lyra's stomach twisted. "Federation?" He looked closer. "Bounty hunters. And they've locked onto us." The Iron Dove jolted as lasers flashed past the hull. The ship shook violently, alarm screaming. "Hold Mira!" Reynolds shouted. Lyra grabbed her daughter as the ship spun through the debris field. Mira cried out, clinging to her mother. Reynolds cursed under his breath. "They're faster. We can't outfly them." Lyra's heart pounded. Fear turned into something sharper, something burning. She looked at Mira's terrified face, then at the failing control panel. "No," she whispered. "Not again." Her arm began to glow. Reynolds saw it, that strange mark pulsing with light under her skin. The same pattern that had scared her before now blazed like fire. "Lyra, what are you—" Before he could finish, she pressed her hand against the ship's console. A wave of white-blue light burst across the controls. The Iron Dove roared like a living thing. Energy surged through every circuit. The radar screens melted into static. Outside, a blinding pulse exploded from the ship, spreading like a shockwave through the debris field. Both bounty ships froze mid-flight, their engines dead, their systems fried. Then, Reynolds looked around, stunned. The ship was glowing faintly, humming softly as if alive. Lyra was on her knees, breathing heavily, her arm dimming back to normal. Mira ran to her, hugging her tightly. "Mom, you made the bad ship stop." Lyra held her daughter close, tears filling her eyes. "I didn't mean to. I didn't want to hurt anyone," Reynolds knelt beside her. You didn't kill them, you just shut them down. He glanced at the radar again. The enemy ships were floating, powerless, in total silence. That blast, it wasn't a weapon, he muttered. It was an EMP, but controlled, focused. He looked back at her. Lyra, you just disabled 2 ships with your mind. She shook her head. No, it's the tech. The nanites. They're using me. Reynolds frowned. No, you're the one using them. You're learning to control it, even if you don't realize it yet. Outside, the broken moons shone softly, lighting the ship's path. Inside, Lyra sat quietly, her child sleeping in her lap, her mind filled with questions she couldn't answer. What was she becoming? A weapon or something more? Reynolds stood by the window, staring out at the stars. For the first time since the war, he felt something he hadn't in years. Hope. Because if one human woman could do this, then maybe humanity wasn't dying after all. Maybe they were evolving, and that terrified the entire galaxy. The Iron Dove drifted through the quiet dark of space. The stars outside were cold and endless, but inside everything had changed. Lyra sat at the ship's table, staring at her hands. The glowing mark on her arm had faded again, but she could still feel it under her skin, a steady pulse, like a second heartbeat. Across from her, Captain Reynolds was silent, his face lit by the flicker of a holographic screen. Lines of old military files scrolled past, symbols flashing in red. He had been searching for hours. Finally, he stopped. His eyes narrowed. Found it. Lyra looked up. Found what? He turned the screen toward her. The words read Project Helion, classified, terminated, unauthorized survivor. Lyra Dane, her name. Her breath caught. They knew I was alive? Reynolds nodded slowly. They've been tracking you for years, but not to kill you. He paused, his tone heavy. To bring you back. Lyra frowned, confused. Back, why? He scrolled further down the file. Images appeared. Humans in labs, machines connected to their veins, glowing lights inside their bodies. They wanted to build humans who could adapt, Reynolds said quietly. People who could survive any world, any gravity, any poison. Not soldiers. Pioneers, she stared at him. But the others, they said it was for war. Reynolds shook his head. It started that way, yes. But near the end, the scientists changed their goal. They wanted to make something greater than war. A new kind of human who could rebuild what we lost. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. Then why did they destroy it? Because the aliens found out, Reynolds said grimly. The Federation feared what humanity might become if Project Helion succeeded. They shut it down, killed the scientists, erased every record. He leaned closer, his voice low and steady. But they missed one. You. Lyra sat in silence. The words hit her harder than any bullet. All these years she thought she was a mistake. A failed experiment running from the past. But now she understood. She was the last success. Reynolds continued scrolling, stopping on a new section, Sub-Project Helion 2, Genetic Transmission. He read aloud. Test results suggest that Helion abilities may be inherited, especially through offspring. Lyra froze. Offspring? Her eyes slowly moved toward the small figure asleep in the bunk across the room. Mira Reynolds followed her gaze. Your daughter? Lyra nodded slowly. She wasn't born in a lab, she's normal. But even as she said it, she remembered the strange things Mira had done, the way lights sometimes flickered when she laughed, or how machines worked when she touched them. Reynolds' face hardened. The Federation isn't after you, Lyra. They're after her. A loud beep broke the silence. The ship's sensors flared red. Multiple signatures inbound, Reynolds muttered, checking the radar. Federation fleet. They've found us. Lyra grabbed Mira and held her tight. What do we do? Reynolds stood. We fight smart. He handed her a blaster. You know how to use one of these? Lyra hesitated, then nodded. I learned when I had to protect her. Good, he said. You'll need that again. The ship shuddered as energy blasts hit the hull. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Reynolds yelled over the alarms. They're jamming our engines. Lyra ran to the console. Her mark began to glow again, brighter this time. She didn't think. She just felt. She touched the control panel and suddenly the ship moved on its own. The engines flared, The shield surged and the Iron Dove shot forward with impossible speed. Reynolds could only stare. "You're not a weapon, Lyra, you're a miracle." But Lyra wasn't listening. Her mind burned with one thought. If the Federation wanted her daughter, they'd have to go through her first. As the Iron Dove vanished into the storm of asteroids, the Federation commander on the lead ship watched in silence. He turned to his officers. "Confirm visual. That ship wasn't supposed to move like that." An officer nodded nervously. "Yes, sir. It moved as if it reacted to her." The commander smiled darkly. "Then it's true. Project Helion lives." The Iron Dove raced through the asteroid field, chased by the glowing ships of the Federation fleet. Every blast shook the metal hull. Alarms screamed. Sparks lit up the cockpit like lightning. Lyra held her daughter Mira close as Captain Reynolds fought the controls. "Shields are failing," he shouted. "We can't take another hit." Outside, the enemy ships moved in perfect formation. Dozens of them, sleek and cold, surrounding the small freighter like wolves circling prey. Lyra looked at Mira, then at Reynolds. "They won't stop. Not until they have her." Reynolds slammed his fist on the console. "Then we make them stop." He turned to Lyra. "You said that Mark connects you to machines. What about ships?" Lyra hesitated. "I don't know. I've never tried." Reynolds grinned faintly, blood on his lip. "Then it's a good time to learn." The Iron Dove shook again. A blast tore through the sidewall. Mira screamed as debris rained down. Lyra pushed her behind the seat and ran to the control panel. The mark on her arm began to glow brighter than ever, bright enough to fill the whole cockpit with blue light. Reynolds shielded his eyes. "Lyra," but she wasn't hearing him anymore. Her mind was somewhere else, deep inside the ship. She could feel its pain, its broken wires, its dying systems, and its heart. She whispered, "Help me. Just one last time." And the Iron Dove answered. Every light on the ship flared to life. The engines roared like thunder. Outside, the entire freighter began to glow, lines of light spreading across its surface like veins of fire. From the Federation flagship, the commander watched in disbelief. "What is that human doing?" An officer stammered. "Sir, the ship's energy levels, and they're impossible. It's rewriting its own systems." The commander's voice turned sharp. "Fire everything now." Dozens of plasma blasts shot through space, but before they hit, the Iron Dove vanished, gone. The sensors went blank. Then, a blinding flash filled the sky. The small ship reappeared right in the middle of the Federation fleet. Energy rippled around it like a living storm. Reynolds stared at Lyra. Her eyes were glowing faintly, her voice calm but filled with power. "You wanted to control humanity," she said, her voice echoing through every ship's comm channel. "You feared us, but we never wanted to destroy you." All across the fleet, systems began to fail, but not explode. Engines powered down, weapons shut off, targeting computers froze. "You call us dangerous," Lyra continued, "but all we ever wanted was to survive, to live free, to be human." Reynolds stood beside her, awe in his voice. "Lyra, what are you doing?" She looked at him and smiled softly. "Ending the war, without killing anyone." Outside, the Federation ships floated powerless in silence. The great fleet that once ruled 1,000 worlds was now still, alive but humbled. Lyra fell to her knees, exhausted. The glowing mark faded away. Mira ran to her, hugging her tight. "Mom, you did it!" Reynolds helped Lyra stand. "You didn't destroy them," he said quietly. "You changed them," she nodded weakly. "Fear can't rule forever. Someone has to show them another way." Later, as the Iron Dove drifted peacefully among the stars, a transmission echoed across the galaxy, a human voice, strong and calm. "This is Lyra Dane. The Federation's hunt is over. Humanity does not seek revenge. We seek peace. Remember this day, not as the day you feared humans, but the day you finally understood us." Her words spread like light across the worlds, to humans hiding on forgotten planets, to aliens who had only known hate, to children who would one day grow up in freedom. In the quiet of the ship, Reynolds watched her and smiled. "You changed everything, Lyra." She looked at him, then at her daughter. "No," she said softly. "We did." The stars outside burned brighter, as if the universe itself was listening, and for the first time in centuries, humanity was no longer feared. They were respected.